A very good afternoon to the Sportzfan Radio panel, and it's a welcome back to Dan Butley after a couple of weeks on the sidelines, and prescient that he's back today because, of course, the NFL kicks off Thursday night, and here to tell us about what he thinks about the coming season. Over to you, Dan.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a college football weekend this weekend, so we get college football started off this weekend, but looking forward to the NFL definitely starting off in the week ahead, and just a more unique season start, 3 preseason games instead of the normal 4 for the first time. And then obviously all the cuts that have been made moving forward, Mark, to get to the 53-man roster. So a lot of good NFL news coming up here, but I think the normal players that you're looking at, probably when you're looking at the NFL MVPs as you look towards the end of the season, probably will be the same players. But as you look at the teams that are coming up, I think the teams that you're looking at maybe most improved, maybe the New York Jets could be a team. Finally get a team from New York that may be a little bit more improved.
Can you just repeat that? Sorry, the Jets.
The Jets
are going to be
absolutely
good. The world has done that. The world has brought in a great new head coach, a great new offensive coordinator from the San Francisco 49ers. Those two led the 49ers to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. They landed a franchise quarterback in BYU's Zach Wilson. Like Trevor Lawrence, who was the number 1 pick, if Wilson can prove that he's an NFL player, and an NFL quarterback, the Jets have upgraded their line, their offensive line to protect him, as well as their receiving core. So may not necessarily get to the playoffs, but could be a 5 to 6 game improvement with the Jets if they can keep healthy, and Zach Wilson proves to be as good as what he was projected to be coming in here. And then another team that I looked at up until this week was the New England Patriots with Cam Newton and Mack Jones backing him up. But Cam Newton this week getting cut by the New England Patriots. So Mack Jones, the former Alabama quarterback, obviously a proven winner at Alabama, will get the start at quarterback for the New England Patriots. They upgraded their receiving core and should be improved, but very similar to Zach Wilson. If Mack Jones can prove to be an NFL quarterback, they should be pretty good, mainly because their defense was solid in 2020. They allowed they were 7th in points allowed during the season last year. And they've added some really good picks on the defensive side as well. So it could make their defensive unit an elite unit this year, which, as we know, defense can win championships. So those are probably my most improved teams, guys and Sarah, in that respect. Teams that I think will slip in 2021, more than likely, I think the New Orleans Saints. New Orleans Saints will probably be one that slips pretty drastically. They lost Drew Brees. Both their in-house quarterbacks, Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill, aren't necessarily elite quarterbacks in the NFL. When you lose a player and a leader like Drew Brees, that's going to be a major step back for the franchise. And I think the Chicago Bears will also see a little bit of a step back this year as well. So those are my most improved and probably the teams that will slip this year, Mark. Can you, just before Professor asks, can you just talk us through what happens at the Packers there? You've got a quarterback that said, I'm out. I don't think we're going to win anything. You blokes are crap, effectively. And then he's now there in that locker room. How do you win back the players' trust if you've pretty much told them, I don't think you boys are any good?
Well, I think it is one, Paul, that you have to trust it. This is the NFL. This is your job. He is the winningest quarterback that they've got, one of the most elite quarterbacks in the NFL. You've got to somewhat let bygones be bygones here and just move forward, knowing that your best opportunity to go to the Super Bowl to win a championship is with Aaron Rodgers. No other quarterback on that system is ready to be at that elite level. So I think that's where the players just have to step up. They have to know it's a business. He did what he thought he needed to do for himself, but at this point he's on the team. He's got his contract, and they got to move forward.
Was he asking for too much money? Is that why no one else wanted him? I mean, surely, like you said, the Saints would love a quarterback, or a lot of teams would have loved him there.
Yeah, the Packers still controlled his rights, Paul, so it was one that they needed to work out some kind of trade to make it happen. And I think given the age, given the length of time he's played in the NFL, obviously just playing a few years in the NFL can beat up a body, can beat up a mind. in many ways, and he's been playing since the early 2000s, mid 2000s in that quarterback position in the NFL, with a lot of wear and tear on that body. So I don't think, obviously the Denver Broncos were one that everybody, as a Broncos fan, we were all hoping they would get Aaron Rodgers, given that team probably has one good shot left with their defensive unit to get there, and with that young receiving core, but they didn't pull the trade off. They ended up getting Teddy Bridgewater on the Broncos. Aaron Rodgers stays with the Packers, and we'll see how it goes.
So, Dan, Gelding's a big Las Vegas Raiders fan. Is there going to be any joy for him this season?
He's got the wrong jersey on for a start.
I've got the name jersey on, Dan. Got the Cardinals Fitzgerald name on, sent from LA itself. But how's my old Oakland Raiders going to go?
Well,
Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah, Gelding's been traded for a fan to be named later. He's been thrown on the Arizona Cardinals because he must have lost a bet. But I think Gelding, they're going to be much improved. I think Derek Carr. I think this is a year, particularly with the new stadium, they actually get to play in front of fans in that new state-of-the-art stadium. It's a beautiful facility in Las Vegas. I think John Gruden finally gets an opportunity to coach a team that's got the players that he wants on it. I think they're going to be improved. I think the AFC West is not going to be very strong. I think obviously the Broncos will be down. I think the LA Chargers, formerly known as the San Diego Chargers, will be down as well. So I think the Las Vegas Raiders have a good shot to win their division, and what they do from there is going to be interesting. But this has got to be a year that Derek Carr steps up, improves, and starts to show that he is that elite quarterback that the Raiders need.
Relocating to Vegas. I'm sorry, Gordon, I was just going to say,
yeah.
I guess there's three possible sets of fans. You've got original Raiders fans, and they've moved to Las Vegas. You've got Vegas residents, I presume they're hoping to win over. And then I guess they're hoping to get just people in Vegas. Let's go and see the NFL. Is that right, Dan? They're going to get three supporter bases, I guess.
Yeah, it's crazy, Paul. You look at the Raiders. They obviously were in Oakland for a long, long time. They moved down to LA, went back up to Oakland. Now they're in Las Vegas. So I don't know if they the triad to get their fan base built out west. But a lot of the discussion when the Raiders moved to Las Vegas was they fully expected that Oakland fans would fly down day of game, go to the game and fly back the next night, that they would just travel down to be a part of it. But the preseason games that they've had there, Las Vegas has really embraced that team. And I think that the amount of money that Las Vegas and Clark County and the state of Nevada have spent to build that facility, fans pretty much are paying for the Raiders to be there. They might as well become fans of the team. And I think it hurts a little bit the Denver Broncos and some of the teams in Southern California that those Raiders fans may have been, Las Vegas fans may have been a fan of, because they will switch their allegiance to the Raiders and support that team pretty strongly.
Geez, a big change of their DNA, isn't it? From the old Oakland days in the 80s.
It very much is. I mean, you talk about Gelding going from the Oakland Coliseum and a facility that's just from the original 70s, getting that end zone, getting those guys dressed up and being a scared place to play, to a very fancy new facility in Las Vegas. It's definitely a step up. And
around the corner from the old Hells Angels, the original Hells Angels chapter. But so I know LA, when they went to the Coliseum up there with Marcus Allen and all those guys, but then you go back to their grassroots, you thought, well, okay, we'll develop that, we'll take on the world attitude. And then next thing you hear, they're in Las Vegas trying to get the high rollers down there.
Yeah, and absolutely. You see what happened to the Vegas Golden Knights when the NHL moved into that market. Las Vegas grabbed that franchise and just fell in love with it. And they went to the Stanley Cup playoffs in their first year of operation as an expansion franchise. So obviously they're getting that support and that love in that new stadium in Las Vegas. I think it's going to help boost the Raiders this season.
Dan, quick question without notice. Jacksonville Jaguars, new coach, very experienced, very well credentialed coach, new quarterback. Will there be a new start for the Jacksonville Jaguars, or will they be just like they've always been?
Totally different team, guys, without Tim Tebow. Just saying. No, I think obviously there's been a lot of ridicule of Urban Meyer in his preseason. They didn't play very well in the preseason. Trevor Lawrence stepped up in the third game a preseason and showed why he is the number one quarterback being selected by the draft this year. But Urban Meyer, the head coach now, very, very, very successful in the college ranks, first time in the NFL. His frustration was basically they weren't showing all the plays and weren't able to practice all the plays during games, during live action against other teams because offensive coordinators and their defensive, everybody on the team told him, hey, we can't show all of our plays in the preseason. We got to hold back. We got to be restrictive. And so it's going to be really interesting to see how that team looks this season. I think they will be improved. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team this coming year, but I think they will be improved. And it'll be a lot of fun to watch them play just to see what Urban Meyer does in the NFL.
So is that the reason Tim Tebow got cut, because they couldn't use the plays he was in?
No, it's I don't think Tim Tebow knew the plays that he was in when he was in. So it was crazy to watch him play. It seemed very lost in the tight end position, and obviously got cut after the first week of games. So he's back now to being a television analyst in college football, and probably at where he's at for the rest of his career.
Well, and don't forget playing for the Mets.
Yeah, he didn't necessarily make it all the way to the Mets, but he definitely gave it a shot, and I can't fault him. Hey guys, anybody that has that athletic ability and can keep playing and keep doing what they love, all the credit to them. Do everything you can, because as we know, we all get older. Our abilities in the elite athlete space start coming back around, and we lose that ability. So take it while you can use it.
All right, Sarah, I might just bring you in here. Are you a follower of the NFL? You have to take yourself off mute.
Taking myself off mute would help. Not as close as I probably should be. I've been following the Patriots a little bit just because that's a team that a lot of my friends followed in school, but not a whole lot since Tom Brady left, because he was really the only Patriot that I knew, which doesn't help in either.
Okay, well, Sarah, the one thing you look at with Tom Brady, though, is you never pick against Tom Brady. We learned that last year when he went down to Tampa Bay. You learn what an elite quarterback he is and how he gets people to follow him and how he steps up and wins championships. So if you're a fan of the NFL and it's Tom Brady's the only player you know, it's a pretty good player to like.
He's got more rings than Liberace.
Were you going to say something, Sarah?
No, I mean, I've enjoyed watching the NFL. I know that there was a lot of talk, Arthur, I think it was Carl Nassib came out as the first openly NFL player. That was in the papers even here in Australia, and it sparked a lot of conversation about when we'll see openly gay players in the AFL as well. But it's good to see that making a lot of strides, and obviously it's a supportive enough community now that people like Carl can feel like they can come out. It's really good steps from the NFL.
All right, Dan, a good segue from Sarah's observations about New England and Tom Brady. Will Tampa Bay lead their division this year at the end of the season?
Let me go division by division. So what I'm looking at is each of the 8 divisions. The AFC East, we'll start with the AFC side. So I think Buffalo and Josh Allen get that division. I like the Cleveland Browns in the AFC Central, the Tennessee Titans in the AFC South, and I cannot pick against the Kansas City Chiefs in the AFC West. Just as much as I love my Broncos, I still think Kansas City is probably one of the most elite teams in the NFL. In the NFC, surprisingly, the Dallas Cowboys probably look at that weak division to win that division. The NFC North, Mark, I can't go against the Green Bay Packers, of course. The NFC South, absolutely cannot pick against Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the NFC West, I think the LA Rams probably improved themselves with their quarterback position enough this season that they win that division. So, yes, to answer your question, I do like Tampa Bay in the AFC South.
Big question, Dan. Do I start Jalen Hurts of Philadelphia or Justin Herbert of the Chargers as my fantasy quarterback? The big question for you.
Oh, I'd go with the former versus the latter in that respect. I feel bad for your quarterback choices, but hopefully you've got a good running back and a good defense.
I got Saquon Barkley and that hyphenated name guy from the Chiefs first, and then I got laughed at for picking Herbert. But I thought he had the most touchdowns of any rookie quarterback ever. Maybe I was wrong.
Well, hopefully you could turn it this season. I think it's not a bad pick. I think it's just one that Obviously, when you look at Mahomes, you look at Brady, you look at some of the elite names in that quarterback race. There's not a lot of great elite quarterbacks in the NFL that you hear of. I mean, the Derek Carrs of the world right now rank up there because they've had some success. But you look at all the rookie quarterbacks I talked about early on in some of these teams. I mean, you look at Trevor Lawrence, you look at Mack Jones, you look at Justin Fields with the Chicago Bears. There's a lot of rookie quarterbacks this season with a lot of unknowns in NFL experience.
Dan,
what happened with that Bears quarterback? I mean, it makes you wonder how they get it so wrong. I mean, they obviously have guys who can identify talent in college quarterbacks, but just to get it so wrong, that's almost like those Facebook memes. You had one job. How can they get it so wrong with Trubisky?
Yeah, great question. And obviously no longer with the NFL at this point. He signed a one-year deal with the Buffalo Bills to back up Josh Allen. Not the best position to be in that respect, because Josh Allen's probably one of the top 3 players right now to favor to win the MVP award. But it just comes down to the system that you're running and whether that is the guy that can win that system. And I'll tell you, every time he walked out there, you kept looking for greatness. You kept looking for somebody that would step up and get it done. And the Bears just have not been good. They just haven't been competitive with him as quarterback.
Dan, we'll get you on this one. We know how great you are on long-range predictions. So who are the 2 teams that are going to play in the Super Bowl, and who's your tip for MVP?
Oh, I always love this one. So the Dan Butley Super Bowl projections. So I think you've really got some elite teams as you look at it. You're looking at the Chiefs. I definitely think are one of the top teams in the NFL. And I think, again, the Buccaneers are right there. But you've got to look at teams like the Packers, depending on how Aaron Rodgers comes out and plays. I do like what the Rams did with Matthew Stafford, picking him up this season. So I think the Packers, the Chiefs, the Bucs, and the Rams are probably your top 4 teams as you look at who's projected to win the Super Bowl and the odds to win the Super Bowl. It will be interesting to see what the Buffalo Bills do this season as well. But I think you're probably looking at a mix of those 4 teams, Mark, and a lot of it has to do with this long-range projection of who could stay healthy, who can keep their quarterbacks healthy, and kind of take it from there.
Okay, and you pick for MVP.
I think you're looking at 3 players. You're looking at Patrick Mahomes, obviously because of what he could do in a lot of different ways as a quarterback. I do like Josh Allen at the Bills. I think he's got a good offensive line unit built around him and receiving core built for success, as well as running back. And again, Tom Brady, just because Sarah likes him. I think Tom Brady is probably right there as well. And again, you can't pick against Tom Brady. The guy just continues to win no matter what system he's thrown into. And it's kind of shows that the success that New England had was probably a lot due to Tom Brady in many ways.
I was going to say, Dan, just with the Jets, I've got to go back to that prediction. You haven't spent the last 2 weeks at one of those festivals, have you? Where they consume those psychotropic substances. It doesn't matter for yourself if you haven't. You did say the Jets were going to be good, yeah? I just wanted to confirm that.
I said the Jets will probably be an improved team. Obviously, maybe a 5 to 6 win pickup compared to what they were last year. Not necessarily playoffs, but I think if they can keep Zach Wilson healthy, knowing what they did on the line and the receivers, I think that they are an improved team.
It would be good for New York. They haven't had a lot of success, I guess, in many sports, have they, for a while?
Dan, were the Jets last a good team when they had Joe Namath?
I think that was probably it. That was what, Super Bowl II last century. Yes, I believe you are correct.
More than last century, wasn't it? Like, aren't you talking 70s, 60s and 70s?
Well, remember that show, The Wonder Years? Kevin Arnold used to wear a Jets jersey every episode, and that was in the 60s, I think, that Wonder Years, that was set.
You are exactly right. The famous Brady Bunch episode as well, with Joe Namath coming in to play catch with Bobby Brady at the time. So definitely the late 60s, Gelding, in that respect.
Wow. All right, Dan. We'll see how the season shakes out with it starting on Thursday night, as I said. The ultimate round in NRL, round 25. Paul, how did it shake out so far as you've seen?
Well, get out your bugle, Professor, for the Storm minor premiers, 4th of the last 6 years, if you don't mind. 21 of 24 wins for the Storm this year, and that's very impressive, even if you're not. It just shows the mindset of that phenomenal team. They've clearly been the best of the last 20 years
the Storm. They went on there with their fine season against the Sharks. The Sharks needed a win to make the 8. They couldn't do it against a banged-up Storm outfit. A couple of concerns for the Storm as they head into week 1 of the finals against your man Schooners Manly, who are on fire. Justin Oldham on the wings on report, as is Nelson Osafa Solomona, their biggest player, literally biggest player. Cameron Munster's got an issue as well with his knee, and Josh Addo-Carr might not be fit as well. I'm a touch surprised at the price the bookies have Manly at. I also, Professor, have a breaking announcement. There is alien life on Earth, and it is the name Tom Trbojevic. He looks like an alien, speaks like an alien, and he runs like one as well, Professor. He is unstoppable, and he could carry Manly into a grand final. I'm very surprised that the bookies have Manly at the $3 mark against a banged-up Storm outfit. The bright lights for the Storm, Pappenhausen back with a hat-trick. Interestingly, it's being played at regional areas of Queensland at the government's request, these finals, not Suncorp Stadium, which is to thank these parts of Queensland that assisted the game. The Roosters going on their merry way. They're going to finish deep in the 8. I do want to, without the hand on the proverbial sausage, Professor, say I did get 7 out of the top 8 right this year. So that's even better than the Meatloaf, 2 out of 3 ain't bad. 7 out of 8 ain't bad, surely.
Not quite yet, Paul. Your 7 relies on the Titans winning by better than 2.
Oh, they've won. I meant to get to my other announcement. The Titans, they're home. Don't worry about remembering the Titans. Remember to bet on them is what I'd say to you. Get on now. Get on hard. The Warriors, they're already back in New Zealand doing a haka. They've already gone mentally, physically, spiritually, emotionally. The Titans will belt them today. If there's one thing I predict all the year, the 2:00 kickoff today, that can be my Father's Day treat, sitting back and watching the Titans belt the Warriors. I feel for the Warriors. They gave it their all, but they've turned it up. They've given up. The hungy's over. There's no more food on the hot coals. It's done. Finished, finito. The Warriors, sayonara. I'll say it now.
Not one to doubt your research either, Paul, but I think you'll find that the Melbourne players were all cleared.
They're cleared, were they, of the charges? Oh, well, that's good for the Storm then. That might be why the bookies have them at that price. I still think Manly, though, they're a darker horse than Octagonal. There's one for you, Gelding. I think that they're absolutely firing in all components. The Storm are vulnerable, and I think it'll be a very close match. I know you want me to call it, Professor. I think the Storm probably win, but with Tom Trbojevic, who I'm convinced is an alien, I think that anything could happen in that match. I'm looking forward to Saturday night when my beloved Rabbitohs open at big odds against the Panthers. Again, it's a shame that Latrell Mitchell won't be there. We saw some of the future of the Rabbitohs on show, and we had a very good win against the Dragons. The reason for Adam Reynolds not getting an extended deal is because the salary cap's tied up on keeping some of the young Rabbitohs you saw in action against the Dragons at the team. Spare a thought for the Dragons captain, Tarek Sims. He's gone in to have a chat about a contract extension. He's been told to look around, so have some of those apples, Tarek Sims. I don't think he was at the weekend at Vorney's, so I'm not sure whether he was an attendee with his T-bone and the case of VB, but they've shown the captain the door. The Dragons are an absolute rabble. They haven't won a match, obviously, since weekend at Vorney's, barbecue gate, whatever you want to call it. So I've got 7 out of 8 right this year, Professor. The one I got wrong was the Raiders, who've just missed out on the 8. This is all, of course, the Titans need to win by 12 this afternoon. They could win by 32. So happy with those predictions. I still stand by the Panthers winning the premiership, which I did tip a few months ago for the panel and the listeners. But it's just a shame for my Rabbitohs. I was looking forward to a grand final on my birthday, but without Latrell Mitchell, it's not looking likely right now.
Paul, the Trbojevic brothers scored 5 tries between them. What can the Storm do next Friday night to stop their impact on the game? If you were the coach,
Storm are famous. Well, the Storm are famous. They have a defensive system. I'm not saying it's anything unethical, but they target one opposing player who they feel will be the most damaging to them. There's nothing wrong with doing that, but if you focus too much on Trbojevic, you've then got the phenomenal Daly Cherry Evans to worry about. There's a star-studded backline there. They're playing some very good football, and it will be a cracking game. I think, given Coutta's news there that those players are cleared, if Munster is there and you've got Nico Hines roaming around as well, that the Storm should just have too much class. But my word, Manly is a big chance of doing a Western Bulldogs if we can cross codes there. It'll be a cracking match on Friday night for sports fans in general.
Paul, you talk about Daly Cherry Evans. Will we expect to see him turn up for a big game at some stage in his career?
Oh, come on. They will.
That's a bit.
Yeah.
Don't you have to just go back to the, not last year's State of Origin, but the year before? Coutta, he was sensational for Queensland.
I was going to say, Coutta, shame that Ash Barty wasn't firing rockets like that. That's one of you off the top rope. He is a gun player. I think the criticism you can put against him is that when Manly was falling apart and certain players were taking pay cuts to keep the team together, Daly pretty much said, I'll have every dollar I can make, thank you very much. That's a cultural thing. Given it's such a brutal sport, I've had some further thinking about that, whether that's such a bad thing. If I was playing, I'd want to earn as much as I could. If some of the boys are taking pay cuts and I decide that I want as much as I can get, well, that's an individualistic thing, but that doesn't affect his playing ability. He's managed to win the team back over, and I think that's through showing how committed he is. I doubt he'll go missing, but I wouldn't put it past the Storm putting some, what we'd say, assertive pressure on him and on Trbojevic, Tom, that is. If you can stop those two, the Storm are home.
Should we be worried by the Knights' form against the Broncos?
Oh, well, the Broncos are rising. They're getting Adam Reynolds next year. There's a query on Payne Haas, who somehow his manager hadn't properly told him what he's worth. Last time I checked, I thought that was a manager's job. But I think Payne's realised he can probably get twice what he's being offered. That's a query for the Broncos. But Adam Reynolds on the way. The Broncos have been less embarrassing than what they were, if that means much. The Knights are the pure limping into the finals team. They are going to be sliced and diced by the Parramatta Eels next weekend. And the Roosters will probably take care of the Titans. Dare I say it, Professor, and I haven't been to the same festival we thought Dan might have been. Could Cameron Smith maybe put the boots on if the Titans make it into the 8? What a final chapter on the CV that'd be if Cam drives down the road where he's living there on the Gold Coast and says to the Titans, put me on a small deal and I'll help you go deep into the finals. Wouldn't that be a story for rugby league? I don't have any inside mail, but that'd be something. He's a competitor, and I think the way this year's gone, if it made sense, it wouldn't be 2021. Perhaps we could hear from Cameron Smith shortly if the Titans, or when the Titans make the 8. Wouldn't that be a story?
Doesn't he have to play some qualifying games before he can pull on a jersey in the
I don't
finals?
know the rules, but the Peter V'landys can make anything happen. So Peter V'landys would probably carry him into training on his shoulders. It would be such a story. That would just be the one of the biggest rugby league stories of all time if that was to happen. I don't have any inside info that it might, but geez, it'd be great for the game if he could lace the boots on and throw the ball around for the Titans, because we have been waiting on this show for a team on the Gold Coast, any team of any code, to make it happen. And imagine if Cam could bring some pride to that area, which is the fastest growing part of the country, and it certainly will be post-COVID, I'd say. Keep an eye on those Titans. They will win today and win well.
I think Peter V'landys might have bigger things on his list to do with rugby league than deal with that crap. I think Peter from Racing New South Wales, he's done a terrific job to get the games played, to get a season out. But I think there's still some underlying issues with the sport. that will need to be corrected during the off season. I'm specifically referring to things like the head high tackles, 6 again, and just some other things. And to mention that if you kick it out, touch finder, and it's 7 tackles, where's that come from? Like,
yeah, and that air raid siren as well. I actually didn't know that was coming. I thought I was in Dresden during the war. I mean, that's just all these sirens going off. I didn't know what was going on, but the game has been too skewed in favour of attacking teams. I think over the off season there'll be some thinking about how we can perhaps slow down some of these rule changes, because he just does things on the fly, and it has led to some blowouts, and it hasn't been great for the game, some of these things. I'm all about protecting the head, but I think this penalty and 6 again, it's just allowing dominant teams to be too dominant, and you're going to end up with basket cases of rugby league teams, because it's going to be too hard to get players to go to teams that can't compete against the juggernauts. And we are seeing juggernauts in this game of the Storm, the Panthers, Rabbitohs. It's good to see the Eels and Manly rising, because I didn't think anyone outside those 3 teams I mentioned could win it. But there are some real chances of being basket case teams next year. Here's looking at you, Cowboys. Broncos are rising. Knights are thereabouts. Warriors, Tigers. I mean, there's some sad teams at the moment, and these rule changes don't help them get back in the game, literally.
Okay, Paul, we know that you're going to pick the Titans to beat the Warriors, but what might the final scoreline be?
Oh, I think it could be 38-10 there. The Warriors are too tired to even do a hooker, I think. They've just had enough in that bubble, and you can't blame them. They gave it their all, erratic as always, but they really have just not gone on with it, and they are the ultimate team that has the potential, but just haven't been able to get it together in that game. Your Dogs are playing. That's got to be one of the stranger stories, Professor, this year. Your man, Lachlan Lewis, who's decided to snaffle the soundbar from the team room there, if you don't mind, and tried to sell it online to get some cash. The man's on $450,000 a year, and he's trying to sell a soundbar. I mean, I don't know if it was one of those boutique types. Doesn't really matter. But the fact that he negotiated a price and set up the sale, all a bit strange to me. But what a year it's been of crazy stories. Your Dogs, I don't think can beat the Tigers, but who knows? If you're showing some form of late, I'd like to see it happen. I think it might be 20-16 to the Tigers, but I would like to see your Dogs end on a good note. You've got some great players on the way. Phil Gould is no nonsense, so you've got a better year ahead, Professor. I know this year couldn't have been much worse in your corner.
No, not with just 2 wins for the season, Paul. It's been very, very bleak. Right.
Professor, you being a Demon supporter would be well conditioned to those sorts of results, though. So we're built from harder stuff than most other people.
Professor,
they've
right, been very good for the very successful Professor's parlay during the winter.
Yeah, that's been a leg that has stood all by itself. You just keep picking the Bulldogs.
Whoever they were playing, you seem to pick in your parlay, Professor.
Yes, well, I could have only been wrong twice out of 25 times, so that's not bad.
Is it not bad, still alive, the parlay for this weekend? Or?
No, unfortunately, Portland Sky got caught behind some runners and didn't win.
Oh, no,
I think
Portland
it just got
Sky
out
wasn't
now.
a bad run yesterday. It was it ran third, but certainly was against the pattern of racing. You shouldn't have been on the front, and the horse came from down the preferred lane again, Moonee Valley. You had a pattern of racing in which I also text your boys after race 3 to stay off the leaders. And so what does the jockey on Portland Sky do?
Don't. Gelding.
We won't.
Gelding.
That won't go by.
Is that the hip pocket talking there, Gelding?
Yes, and we would certainly like to thank the jockey. Trying to think who it was now. Race 5, number 3, Luke Curry. He cost us a bit of money yesterday, Professor.
Oh, he did actually. Yes.
Was he the one on Elephant?
Yes.
Yes, he was on Elephant and decided
might have been on Elephant as well. Might have been a giraffe on the Elephant. Can you, if you take that jersey off and put on your jockey silks, what would you have done on elephant differently?
Stayed on the fence, and Superstorm. If he had stayed on the fence, Luke Curry, Superstorm doesn't get up there. It was like he let the waters part so Superstorm could get there. And he goes
not a biggie though. I just missed out
on
a spot in the Cox Plate. Not a biggie.
not an issue.
Can it still make the Cox Plate, that horse?
Sorry?
Can it still make the Cox Plate, that horse, through other ways?
Yes, but I don't think it would want to go up against Very Elegant or Saki if you saw Saki's win in Sydney yesterday.
I saw that win, my word.
Yeah. Sorry, Professor.
That was the best win of the country, wasn't it, yesterday, that Zaki?
Yeah.
Would have won with Ricky May on it yesterday.
There's a new.
Boy, that's a blast from the past, Coota.
It's just all this hey, it's Saturday, 50-year reunions coming up. Absolutely blow my mind that you could blow my mind to bring that show back.
Why are you so cruel, Coota?
Some things are timeless, Coota.
Why are you so cruel, David?
All right, back to you, Dan. The US Open last year, no crowds. This year, things have opened up. Has there been a change in the buzz around tennis over the last week?
Not much. I mean, literally one of those that obviously you see not Americans, Serena not playing. You see some of the star players not playing this season. There just doesn't seem to be much coverage of the US Open. I mean, it's on ESPN here. The really good coverage, if you're looking for it, if you want to watch it, it's there, but you just don't see a lot of coverage of the media talking about the US Open or talking about tennis in general here in the United States. And, the big news this week was more than anything, the hurricane going through and blowing out some of the matches, the weather in New York, the subway system flooding, just the devastation in the area. And then they got back to tennis the next day. So again, just not a lot of discussion on tennis. So people I talk to, people that follow sports in the United States, just start out talking about the US Open.
Dan, can I ask a question? When you have a roof on a stadium, normally that means that it's to try and keep the rain out, isn't it?
Yep. That's usually what that's used for, or extreme heat where you can throw on the air conditioning a little bit. You're correct.
Yeah, no, I just wondered because looking at the scenes this week, I know it was a hurricane or torrential rain, but watching rain come sideways into the Arthur Ashe was quite staggering to see.
Yeah, that's one way to clean the stadium, David. That's definitely one way to clean it. Just keep the roof open, let the floods wash through it, and then you don't have to worry about cleaning up the Coca-Cola and beer stains all over the seats. So,
I was going to say, Coota, you know what's coming. You're a big advocate for Nick Kyrgios. His stand against having to walk and get his towel. I mean, is it sort of a workplace safety type thing, complaint that he just didn't want to walk and get his towel? Can you talk us through how you took that episode?
Yeah, it's I didn't follow that one closely, Paul, in that respect, so I don't know much about it, but it just seems like there's some strange gamesmanship going on in the US Open. That's some of the stories that you're hearing more than anything. Long bathroom breaks, fake injuries where they need medical attention, some of those, and Kyrgios's issue is probably right along those this week.
So I think he even suggested he was going to defecate on the court, which is quite a moment even for him. Did quite a show for the fans.
Professor, that would definitely be a unique experience to follow, Paul. No doubt about that.
Professor, one for Dan and also for for David. Serena Williams, as she's no longer cruising through and winning, we've seemed to see a lot more dummy spits from her. As she's getting closer to the record now, and she's being kicked out a bit earlier in tournaments at the moment. Her non-appearance, is that due to, if I can't win, I won't play? Or if she's unhappy with the way things are? Or is it because of COVID?
I think a lot has to do, Greg, with Father Time catching up, Gelding, in many ways. Yep. I think it's the injuries, the illnesses, issues that she's got health-wise, and obviously also having a young child. I think that all kind of culminates into it. You saw her sister Venus pretty much got to that age and fell off the national stage pretty quickly. And I think Serena is kind of in that mode as well. The competition's definitely caught up and surpassed her here a little bit. She's still an outstanding tennis player, but I just think the injuries and the age have just caught up to her.
Her last Grand Slam win, Dan, was in the Australian Open in 2017, and since that date, she's lost 4 finals and 2 semi-finals since, and then withdrew obviously from the US Open with injury. The youth are coming, and they have been for some time. We obviously talk about Grand Slams and the fact that it is 3 sets for the females. But it's 3 pretty intensive sets when you're actually playing matches that aren't 6-love anymore. She used to win her first 2 to 3 rounds. She'd drop maybe 5 or 6 games, whereas now she's made to work. And to get 7 matches out of Serena is a big effort. So I suspect she'll target 1 next year. Hopefully it means that she's able to play the lead-up tournaments as well. I don't think you can win a Grand Slam, and we laugh about Nick Kyrgios, but Nick's performance at the US Open was disgusting, to say the least. The towels were an issue. I think at one stage he had 14 towels on the court at both ends. He had 5 or 6 or whatever he did, throwing them, running argument with the umpire. But with Serena, I think she needs to have that leading tournament. So hopefully, Dan, we can get some consistency back, and she is able to, because she's changed the way tennis is played. Like, let's not sugarcoat or anything like that. The way tennis is played has changed because of Serena and to a lesser extent Venus, and the game's better for it.
No doubt about it. I mean, he definitely brought much stronger power to the women's game in many, many ways. It just was amazing to watch her ground strokes and her serves, just how fast they came in and how much more powerful they were than their competition. And I think that's one of the interesting things about women's tennis is being best of 3 instead of best of 5. You could be in a position that you can get out to an early lead, but boy, that can come back and swing quick. And you can find yourself losing two sets pretty quick in women's tennis as well, and just being out of it. Whereas being able to come back, get a second win and come back is a little bit more difficult when you got a 3-set sprint instead of a 5-set marathon. So no, your analysis is great, Cooter, in that respect, that she used to just dominate those early opponents, but now every opponent she plays seems to be very similar, if not a little bit better than she is at this point in their careers. And it's due to her and her efforts throughout her career to get women's tennis players that much better. I mean, she's getting up close to 40 at this point. And, she's now when you're usually in women's tennis at that age, you're done. You've been done for a while. And you're seeing that mid-20s now in women's tennis. It's pretty much that peak of your career. So to be that good that long, it's been amazing for her.
My highlight of the Kyrgios spray, he even had to spray his box to say, I can't hear what you're saying with the masks on. Well, the query would be, what's he talking to his box for? to start with, when you're getting annoyed at your own people, there's something wrong there. I don't know.
The other thing, Professor, obviously we're talking US Open is the loss of Ash Barty this morning, our time. Dan mentioned there about swings in matches. Ash obviously lost the first set pretty comfortably, 6-1, played a poor set by her standards, won the second one 6-2, was up 5-2 and lost a tiebreaker 7-6. You can go through all the stats for her match. And at the end of the day, she had 37 winners and 39 unforced errors, which is just absolutely off the charts for Ash. And her serve was a little bit off as well. So, again, she's made the 3rd round of a major off the back of winning last week. Let's hope it leads through to the Australian Open, successful Australian summer coming up, and that we can see her win the Australian Open. And then
I think it's mental, Coota, physical, strategy. What if you're Roger Rashid called in to assist her as a coach? What is it? What's wrong?
Well, we wouldn't call Roger Rashid in for starters. We'd call in someone that has an idea.
Not mucking around today.
What I think with Ash, I think she still has those ups and downs in matches. And so to play, as we said, to play the 3 sets out. Like this match here, as I said, she lost the first at 6-1, won the second one 6-2, and then was 5-2 up. She should be winning that match in the third, whichever way you look at it. And that's, I suspect she would be disappointed with it. But again, we're demanding a lot. And if we talk about what Serena's done at the age of 40, and we talk about Naomi Osaka, that was hard to watch her match. Even harder was to watch her press conference afterwards, where she looked as though she was about to break down, and looked as though she had no idea or no answers for what she wanted to do next. So you hope that she has the right people around her, and whether it is having that break like Ash did. Ash took a year off, played some cricket, probably had some beers, played some golf, worked out what was pretty good in life, and now has come back and obviously is the world number one. And for us, probably our most, and we don't speak lightly of this, but probably our most recognisable overseas athlete, I would think. Especially when last year, Sarah, she's at the footy watching finals, and the crowd, the cameraman happened to find her, and there she is necking a beer in the grandstand with her mates. She's everything that we want in sport. Dan, a quick one for you. Is tennis not a big thing in America because of the lack of success? So if we go back to the era with Sampras, Courier, Roddick, Courier, you could go through that era where they just had player after player. The Bryan brothers to a certain extent for doubles. At the moment, they've got like Jack Sock, Opelka, not real household sort of names. Is that one reason, do you think?
I think that's the number one reason, Cooter, in that respect. America likes winners in mmany ways. I mean, that's where a lot of the money goes. You go back to the Andre Agassi time periods, and the camera, images everything, his commercial spots and that type of stuff. I mean, those were the eras of tennis, and America's always had those eras where it was McEnroe and Connors to Agassi and Sampras. I mean, you had those great players that you followed and you wanted to follow, and you turned on the TV for that reason. But there's not an American male player right now that is a household name that people want to follow, that people want to see play. And with Serena's, aging and Venus no longer as competitive as she was, really not playing either. There's just not that household must-see TV U.S. Open type footage anymore. It would be interesting to see and look at the ratings for ESPN to see how many Americans are actually watching the U.S. Open. They've spent a lot of money to get those rights, and they broadcast a lot of coverage all day long, but I just don't see a lot of people turning it on.
Cooter, surely you can't depart today without a mention of Dylan Alcott.
Well, we could talk about the Paralympics probably for an hour, I reckon. The coverage, first of all, has been pretty solid. It hasn't quite been the same as the Olympics by having it on their mainstream channel. But at the same time, being able to see athletes like Curtis McGrath as well, Dylan Alcott, the quad doubles, all the sports, the basketball, watching the basketball is just like how they bash into each other. Dylan Alcott is actually going for the gold slam. And that's his last Paralympics. He's now officially said that will be it. I think the moment of the Paralympics for me was when he beat the young Dutch bloke that's half his age. They wheeled around the net and hugged after the game. The Dylan Alcott went back to move away, and the Dutch bloke just wouldn't let him go. And I think for a sport to have an ambassador or a person like Dylan Alcott, I think goes well for the future of any sport. So, and just not Australian tennis, but I think just the wheelchair tennis in general.
Okay. To you, Sarah. It's a great segue talking about Paralympics, and there was some publicity during the week. Former Olympian and Greater Western Sydney player Chloe Dalton was in the news with her trying to bring attention to the fact that Paralympians aren't paid like Olympians are paid. Do you want to take us through that?
Definitely, and an amazing segue, as we've seen some amazing success from our Australian Paralympians, and we have seen some massive steps taken in how this is being covered as well. I could assume that even people who have watched the Olympics and might not necessarily prioritise the Paralympics are still very aware of how well our Olympians are going. I think they've won 60 medals to date, the Paralympians, with some amazing wins all across events as well. But it leads into a conversation that was started by Chloe Dalton. She's gold medalist. She won gold for the rugby sevens team in 2016 in Rio. She wasn't able to go this year as she fractured her cheek, I think a week before they're actually supposed to fly out to Tokyo, which is devastating for her. But she runs a podcast called the Female Athlete Project and brought to attention don't receive any awards for actually placing in the Olympics, or they previously didn't, in comparison to able-bodied Olympians who are getting 20 grand for a gold medal. Paralympians were getting zero. So Dalton brought this to the community's attention, I think it was a week ago, and within 3 days had raised $75,000 to go towards awarding these Olympians and what they were doing, and continued the conversation to the point where the federal government announced 2 days ago that they were going to be compensated the same as able-bodied Olympians. So a really amazing effort from Chloe Dalton and the Australian community to have this change not only implemented so fast, but I think that people weren't really aware of how Olympians were being compensated prior to the Olympics. Because I know personally, I wouldn't have been able to tell you off the top of my head how much Olympians were getting for every medal. But in comparison to other countries, it's not that much able-bodied Olympians. And I think there's only a handful of countries that actually match the same compensation for Olympians and Paralympians, America being one of them. So Dalton's main goal was really just to bring Australia up to standard, and she's done really well in pushing this. So now Australia gets to say that we do compensate our athletes equally. While it might not be to the same extent that America does, I think Americans are getting $60,000 for every gold medal that they receive. But still, yeah, just an amazing effort to start with that GoFundMe campaign and get to 75 grand within 3 days and then make this really effective change is just something that you love to see from athletes and Australians in general. It's done something really good for our community.
Hard to disagree with any of that. And it's everything. It's track and field. It's absolutely every sport. And I was staggered when originally you heard about the fact that the pay levels weren't the same. And obviously Scott from Canberra, they've now corrected that. Surprised Michaela Cash wasn't involved somewhere as well, but I think it's terrific to see. Dylan Alcott's obviously tweeted about it. And again, just the awareness. I think like these are phenomenal athletes. We've got a few cult heroes that are sort of making their way through the sports as well. We've got a bloke called The Hulk who did one of the best after-match interview or after-performance interviews you'll see. And then, of course, the bloke called Scooter who just talks about how the Paralympics and the training and everything saved his life. So I think the stories coming out of it are fantastic, and it actually is a big fill-up for for the Australian community.
Definitely. And even following, there was research done into countries and how they relate to their Olympians. And Australia is ahead of just how much we care for and how much we support our Olympic athletes in comparison to some other countries is insane. We're leading the way. And the fact that this support can be extended to our Paralympians as well it's amazing to see.
Thanks for that, Sarah. Certainly a worthy cause, and I was amazed that the Paralympians weren't being recognised financially at all, and one wonders how that slips through to the keeper in times like today.
Exactly. Well, it's nice to see that it got caught. And it'll be great to see these Olympians coming home and being able to be compensated, and we can continue to hear these amazing stories over the next 4 years until we see them in Paris.
Yeah, thanks for highlighting that for us, Sarah.
No problem.
Gelding,
Professor.
races at Geelong and Casterton today. What can we lose our money on this afternoon?
Oh, well, Professor, there's that's a very positive attitude that you bring.
I was going to say, it's a bit negative to show.
Yeah, it's a very positive attitude you bring. I think for this crew, there's certainly an open bet at Casterton today, Professor,
Yes.
which we all should be on. Race 4, number 4, cold beers.
Oh, nice.
Lockdown. So we'll certainly make that one of our bets to follow. Paul Pruska, Dylan Bates. We also might follow them, Professor, in the 110 event at Casterton. Race 1, number 12, Shocking Habit. And we might do that into race 3, number 2, Lavano, into Cold Beers. And then one for David for Morty Alec, race 6, number 1, Aspen, Colorado.
That's also for Dan from
also
California.
from Dan. Yeah, Dan from LA. Yes, Dan from LA and David from Morty Alec. And at Geelong, Professor, we just like 2, race 4, number 8, Golden Monkey, into race 6, number 14, Silk Jacket, and hopefully the giraffe can get a monkey out of Golden Monkey, which I noticed is trained by Clayton Douglas. However, he doesn't have his normal jockey on board. He's gone for Jake Noonan this time.
Well, his normal jockey's been suspended.
And Gelding, on that topic that Professor just raised, we talked about this last week. They've appealed. 3 of them have appealed. Now, why would you just not, like, one of them that's appealed is the bloke that didn't come forward originally.
Well, David, all I can say on that is that sometimes when these same people have been riding, we've given them, we've credited them with asset rides, and you would have to say that decision would be probably similar to something like that. To say that they were silly to do what they did, all I can hope with the appeal is that Judge Bowman can actually increase it if they want to. Yeah, that's my opinion of the appeal. I think it's just silly, and I think Jamie Carr and the other female involved, Goldry, have done the right thing by just accepting the punishment, not appealing it, and moving on. Really, look, I hope Judge Bowman adds another month or 2 to their things for the stupidity of actually appealing. I don't know how they were allowed to put an appeal. Well, normally there's got to be some basis for it, doesn't there?
Yeah, Coutta, just on that point, which one's the silliest event of the week? The jockey's appealing, or an AFL footballer pleading not guilty to making contact with an umpire?
Well, you put them in the same. You put the people involved in the same basket, wouldn't you?
How do you plead not guilty and don't get more weeks? I don't understand. Like, there's no, like, Toby Green, like, God bless him, he can play footy, but he would be better suited as being a rugby league player. There we go.
Oh, come on. No.
Right? He would be better suited.
I like it, David.
Yes, I'll throw in the towel on you on that, Coutta. If you want to compare it to Kyrgios, give me strength. We don't want that grub green in our game.
Now come on, Paul. It wouldn't be 2021 if we didn't have bad comparisons.
Oh, I think the event of the week for mine was that more towels than a Greek bathing house, I tell you, with Kyrgios. And then offering to defecate on the pool that did me for the week.
How about this one then, Paul? I'll ask Coutta a question I was going to ask him during the tennis segment. Which was the worst loss during during the first round, Nick Kyrgios or Alex de Minaur? Number 14 seed going down without firing a shot.
He's had a poor run since he got got positive tests to COVID in Spain, so he couldn't compete at the Olympics. Since then, Alex has had a really poor run. He would have tried his guts out though, whereas Nick, if I said to you that Nick won 6 points in the third set, would you think he's trying?
Well, he was trying. It's just the level of trying.
I don't.
He was very trying.
Yeah, he was. It was all set up for him, Gelding. It was all set up for Nick because the match started at midnight in New York, where the crowd would have slurped a few beers down during the day, and I would have loved to see him win and show how he plays. Whereas
he might have tried if he had the disco ball up on the roof.
Well, they could probably do it. So
we might pull it up there, ladies and gentlemen. Just before we go, Dan, a bit of stop press, I understand. A bit of a surprise in college ranks. One of the big teams being knocked off first in their first match.
Yeah, perennial college football playoff finalist Clemson just lost their first game of the season. Georgia just beat them in Atlanta, so big upset. Georgia was projected to be pretty good, but obviously Clemson going down the first game of the season is a pretty big news in college football today. So just finished that one off.
Well, it just shows you how good the last quarterback was.
Yeah, absolutely. And SEC is pretty doggone good. Georgia, usually it's Alabama winning that conference every year, but I think Georgia's going to give Alabama a handful this year.
All right. Well, I'm going to follow Paul's recommendations and going to get the super out and put it on the Titans for this afternoon.
Have you got any left after that bet on Ash Barty at $1 a month?
Yeah, that didn't help. I've got a little bit left. All right. So until next Sunday,